And we're going to struggle, probably keep it on time, but we will try our very best to do that because there are so many amazing stories to be told from the athlete's perspective. Working in sports for over 14 years now, one of the things that I think sometimes gets overlooked when we go into sports industry events and panels are the voices of the athletes. And that's even more so when we talk about women in sports. So here we are with an amazing panel. And I think it's best to get started by learning a little bit about each one of you. So Antika, you are 10 years old. And already you have so many accomplishments to your name. Last year, you were the first female racer to win a race at the Le Mans Kart International Circuit in the Rotax Challenge International Trophy. This year, you were selected by the F1 Academy Champions of the Future program. And you were also called last year the fastest girl in the world under 10 years old. Tell us how you got your start in karting.
First of all, I would like to thank Sika Summit to invite me here to give her a body guide. So on the question, I already kind of know that yes, I would accomplish a lot. My journey started by my dad. He was India's first Hashkan karting champion for Asian Vice Champion. So, and so he basically made my I was inspired by him, and so I was I think only 2 or 3 years old. I used to watch his races and karting. Like he used to do some races at my time. Like it was before COVID. I really watching him there getting on the podium. And I was really inspired by that. And I was like, I want to get associate. I also wanted that because at that time I was really young, and I was also I had really cars, and then so I used to play with them all the time. So I really to actually drive one. So then my boyfriend, we were in the mall, and then there was an electric car, very slow one. So then I wanted yeah. So then I wanted to drive in one, and then so that then I drove to the re-embrace, and my dad took me there almost once a week, during the Saturday and the Sundays.
Yeah, and how do you feel when you're competing? I know you have a competitive spirit.
Yeah, so I feel very good to be competing, especially being the amazing. Most of the time, the amazing all the time. So obviously, I get a lot of attention because I'm a girl. Without.
And so you should. Amazing. I wanted to move over to you. You are a trailblazer in UAE weightlifting. Among many, many firsts and accomplishments, you played a crucial role in the 7-member female UAE national weightlifting team that competed to earn a quota for the Rio Olympics in 2016. Talk us through your journey in sport.
Thank you, Dawn, and thank you, Sega, for having us today, for having this amazing event to empower the future of athletes, current athletes, and creating that progress in the ecosystem. My journey started from a very disempowering place. So I am somebody who struggled with severe depression and anxiety when I was a teenager, and I was in a very bad mental state when I was at university. And then one day I really felt I just got sick of that feeling in my body, and I felt like I'm sick of hating myself, and I wanted to change that feeling. So I decided to take action, and I went for a simple walk around a park nearby our house. And that walk really changed my life because I sweated all the negative thoughts. I sweated all the pain. And then I realized I have the power in my own hands to change my life. And from there on, I just started to pick up, going to the gym, strength training, learning about CrossFit, becoming the first Emirati woman to compete in CrossFit back in 2012, and then deciding that let me focus on a sport that I can actually measure and reach a place where I can really succeed in it. And I decided to do Olympic weightlifting.
Amazing. Dawn. Don't usually have another Dawn on the panel. She got to. I really gave up to Dawn. You've got a long career in sport as well, from elite athlete to now a national level Paralympic swim coach with the Saudi Paralympic swim team. How did you get started in sport and find your way to coaching?
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me, everyone. Thank you to Sika. Thank you to my fellow panelists. And Dawn, nice to speak to you.
Yes.
I would like to say that my journey through sports has just been parallel to my life. My very, very first coach was an Olympic gold medalist. So when you're 6 or 7 years old and you get to actually feel that medal in your hand, it's real. You can be that person because that person's visible. So that's where it started. Field hockey was my first true love. I am a swimming coach, but Zimbabwe, country that I grew up in, won its first gold medal in 1980 for field hockey. I wasn't born yet, but by the time I started playing, that was all that it needed to have happened to impact a whole generation. So by being visible, by seeing someone in a position that has done it before you was what inspired me to chase down my dreams of becoming an Olympic field hockey player. Play all the way up to the Athens Olympic Games in 2 weeks. So I transitioned to my father's country. And 3 months before the games, our team was pulled from the tournament. I didn't make it to the Olympics. And at that point, that was a catalyst to get me into coaching. So graduated student athlete, did 10 years in the UK, and then the COVID crisis hit, and everyone wasn't paid for coaching. So I moved to Dubai, and they gave me a wonderful opportunity to build the largest female sports coaching company in the whole Middle East. Sold that 2 years ago, and pivoted into Saudi Arabia, specializing in training throughout my whole coaching career. And now I find myself with the Saudi Paralympic swim team. That's my story.
In my experience, both as an endurance athlete and also speaking to women for the Medal Said podcast, many women find themselves in leadership roles in sport simply for following their dreams. By being the first, you are by default a leader. And through advocating for yourself, in turn, you find yourself advocating for others as well. As you're a vocal mental health advocate. And I urge everyone to listen to the podcast I had with Amina. It's an amazing and insightful chat. She was the third guest on our podcast. Sorry, I'm losing my train of thought now. How did your sporting journey turn into an advocacy journey?
That's a very important topic to discuss, because whenever you enter the sports field, you really realize that you are changing narratives in so many different levels, not just on a physical level as a woman, female weightlifter from the Arab region, but also as a woman who had a background with mental health challenges and conditions. I, shared my journey prior to me being an athlete. But one thing that does happen often is when you are very much in it, you could deal with certain setbacks and certain challenges that makes you go through a whole different level of adversity when you're an athlete dealing with a mental health crisis, and how you manage to manage your training at the same time, find a way to recover mentally at the same time, perform, especially when you're an athlete constantly looking for funding and sponsorship. When I started my journey, I'm looking back 15 years ago. At that time, women in sport in the Middle East, in the Arab world, was not very encouraged. It was not seen as a career path. It was not seen as a way forward for women here. And now that has changed a lot. So by using my platform, my social media, my voice through talking, I actually became the first Emirati woman to get the Rosalind Carter Fellowship for Mental Health in Journalism, which is a fellowship to help change the narrative of how mental health is being described in the media, and how to change the narrative around the words being used, and how to kind of shift that perspective of mental illnesses into being conditions that can be managed, and there is more compassion and love around that. So I use my platform whenever I can through speaking, writing, to shed light on those important topics. And sport gave me that room and that voice on my platform.
Such an important topic, and it's really heartening to see that more athletes are speaking out about that. And I just think, as you were saying, like you speaking out about that so many years ago as well, you really led the way for athletes here to do that. Atika, now you're the youngest person, I think, in this whole event. When you're on the track, you said you get a lot of attention because you're a girl, and sometimes you're one of a few girls, and sometimes you're the only girl. What are some of the challenges that you faced as an athlete on and off the track?
Yeah, so like I said, I'm the only girl. Most of the times, the only girl on the track. So the other people are most boys. So I mean, they're all our boys. They couldn't be the girl. I want to keep it. And then like they calling me on the track, on and off the track. But I try and fight back. Like if they were pulling me off the track, I try and show them on the track. So
Yeah, girl.
So yeah, and also like most of the boys don't like to get beat by the girls.
Well, I think they're going to have to get used to it. Dawn, you are the first woman to coach a Saudi men's national level team, and you're also a coach for para athletes. What does being a voice for change mean to you?
So I think the power in sport, the transforming to the power of sport is basically inclusivity. We want to include everybody in sports. Teamwork and the values associated with sport are what we take with us into the next stage of life. And we heard the Paralympian Jess speak about that before. What happens when you stop being an athlete? And one of the lessons I teach my team is what we learn in training camp, what we learn in competition on diplomacy, how we carry ourselves, how we are with each other, is generally how we're going to be in the next paradigm. So we're teaching life skills through sports. Saudi Arabia has a vision 2030, and one of the pillars of that vision is a better quality of life for everybody. So every member of society is valuable. And sport has the capacity to include everybody in conversation. This is the change that we want to drive. Everybody is welcome.
I want to move on to visibility of women in sports because it's a topic that was brought up a lot today. And it's one very close to my own heart. And why I set up the medal set as one of the first and only sports platforms for women in sport first in the region. There's also a growing community I see online supporting women's sports, which is really, really exciting. Right now, though, you can look at any sports section of legacy media, and women are largely absent. In the U.S., we know that women's sports media coverage has tripled in the past few years, thanks in large part to new forms of media, including social media and independent women-led media companies. During Paris 2024, just for some statistics, some context, female Olympians generated 53% of total engagement across social content, but only received 43% of legacy media coverage. I see this through the medal set that social media has become a really, really powerful tool for connecting women in sport and giving a platform for us to talk about things that haven't been talked about before and to showcase all of the amazing things that are happening with women's sports. And Tika, you have quite a growing and engaged social media following. I think that's where I first saw you. Do you like sharing your story online? What's some of the feedback you get from sharing your story?
Yeah, so like you said, I like to share my stories, but my mom moved me on the brain. But yeah, I see it sometimes. But like you don't worry about it on the track because like you're very focused like on the track. And I needed to do that. You're getting very distracted.
I think those are some wise words for the very focused athlete. Dawn,
So also, I like I like to keep up my fans updated with all of my racing and Red Bull events I'm going on and all stuff like that.
yeah, and it's an amazing tool, and I think you are using it very, very well to share your story and inspire a whole generation of girls into karting. Dawn, in your opinion, how has social media empowered you as a coach and also your athletes? Do you think it's lifted the lid on topics that otherwise wouldn't get discussed?
Yeah, social media is really important. It is about visibility. So the narrative in the past has been whatever a publishing newspaper wants to publish. So who's writing those articles and who are they writing those articles for? Today's age of social media, we've got a young athlete right here who can write her own story. And once again, I tell my team, you are writing history. You write your own story. So there's a lot of power that resonates from when you tell your own story, as opposed to somebody else's perspective of what your story is. So when it comes to sharing my story, it's not really my story, it's our story. And there's power in the collective. We like, share, repost these stories. And once again, if we achieve great success, does not the whole nation share in that story? This is the power of media, and this is what it should be used for, to push the narrative forward for everybody.
I see anecdotally, like just looking at our own social media, the amazing support there is for women in sports. And we have stats to back that up. Some stats from the collective from Wasserman highlight the potential of working with women in sport. Men earn 21 times more playing salary on average than women in sport. Women depend on sponsorship and endorsements twice as much as men do. And with 82% of their annual income derived from partnerships. But fans perceive women athletes as positive role models who are trustworthy, exemplify excellence, and are inspirational. 89% of sports fans say that they're more inspired to take social action when partners or brands associate with women athletes. Amna, do you think brands and organizations are fully supporting and leveraging the power of women in sport?
Absolutely not. And I can, attest to that with my experience in the last 15 years, with all the experiences and, certain situations I've experienced. And to give you a very simple example, not naming names, I was with a company and then there were 3 of them and there was just me. I was never represented by any company. I did everything solo. My whole campaigning, reaching out for sponsorships was me doing the proposals, me meeting them. And they looked me in the face and they told me, Amna, you have given us more than we have given you. And I said, okay, so why don't you give me what I am worth? And they say, oh, your sport is not interesting. Even though it's I'm somebody who achieved so much. I have a wax figure in Madame Tussauds. And this actually is a great opportunity. And this is what I actually, even till now, I reached out to sponsors. I'm like, you can actually sponsor my figure, visibility every time somebody visits. When I take photos and videos with the, events there. And there's so much that could be done to actually support me as an athlete who doesn't compete anymore, but is still very much active, is still very much, advocating and consulting, with companies and how to improve their, systems, educational programs and things like that. So, even like, with other brands like social media, sometimes they go back and looking at my social media numbers and metrics. And I'm like, I'm not a social media influencer. I'm a person of an impact who actually made a difference. I was part of creating a sports hijab for a big brand. I did so much more than just have social media likes and shares and whatever you want to call it. So when companies come to me and they say my metrics are not good enough, I'm like, but I have so much more reach than you realize outside of my social media through speaking, through interviews that I do. And I've worked with, other international organizations like the Washington Post, the New York Times. So there's much more that needs to be done by brands and organizations to engage with athletes, current or past athletes, to really maximize their own efforts to change the ecosystem in the sport field.
I think speaking to athletes for the Medal Set podcast, sponsorship on an individual level is one of the biggest issues that we face over and over and over again. But I think it's really great to see brands come on board and support big events. But I think there's still a gap that exists out there when it comes to grassroots level sports and also individual athletes, particularly when those athletes are working in are not in a team sport and are individual athletes. So that's something I would like to see changed as well. And I think for any brands out there that are listening, when you look at the impact of the work that you do, we're in such a special moment in time right now in the Middle East where there are so many firsts. To be tied into those stories and be a part of that story and help create that change is so very important. change, we know, is a collective effort. And I've been so heartened to see events like this when so many women, sometimes you go into a sports event and you see a sea of suits. So to come in and see a majority of women is particularly special for me as well. I'm sure for many others. We now have a woman in the world's top job in sport, Olympic president-elect Kirsty Coventry. We have gender parity for the first time at the Summer Olympics this past year, but there's still a lot of work to do in terms of parity in sports management, coaching, and governance. Along with the support of women, we also need support of the wider ecosystem. Dawn, how important is allyship?
Yes, it is a huge topic. And it's wonderful to see a room full of women. However, the allyship needs to be with the men who currently hold those positions. Empowerment, when you are being empowered, only that means the power is coming away from somebody else so the light can shine on you, that it's your turn. Kirsty is good for amplifying. We grew up together, we went to school together, and it's wonderful to see a woman at the most powerful position in world sports. She is visible, but she didn't get there alone. There is a lot of support that's needed, and we have to collaborate with those who are already in powerful leadership positions to enable us to be able to make those changes, because only when we make the changes together do they then become sustainable. And what do I mean by sustainable? It's great that after 31 years, we have a female at the top at IOC. But will she just be the one and only female, and it goes back to being men for another 130 years? Sustainable change means that there needs to be people coming through the pathway, not just one. Great to be the first, but there needs to be more.
And for you, what's the role of allies in helping to affect change? I know you've had some allies in your sporting career as well.
Yeah, having allies really create a sense of community and oneness and sense of inclusion. And I think that makes a huge difference. You know, like I had one Emirati man who was an athlete himself, and he guided me through mentorship. It was through telling me, okay, Amna, I know you're the first. The pathway is not clear, but keep on going. So having that moral support can really encourage, athletes who are up and coming, or anybody really, to keep on going and keep on pushing for their goals and whatever they want to achieve. And, a sense of allyship really can create a very positive path forward for everyone, because everybody is going to benefit from that, having that sense of community and support.
I think we've got time for one more question. I'm going to scroll it down. I'm going to skip over one. We're in a room right now with a lot of people of influence. How can the wider sports ecosystem support from organizations, brands, support athletes overall? Amna?
Me again. Okay. Good. I have a couple of recommendations. One of them is having professional athletes who have achieved, actually be in decision-making positions, because they will understand what is required for an athlete to make it from A to Z. And having that knowledge and experience from an athlete can change the whole program and outlook and path for that company to really reach their goals and the outcomes they want to achieve. And the second point is that, consult with athletes, do study groups, get them on board, compensate them for it, because they are giving you knowledge to use to actually improve your programs and your system and your educational institutions approach. So those are the couple of things I would like to do and, share. And, I'm available to support anybody who's looking to improve their programs.
Yeah. And Dawn?
Yeah, I'd like to add what Anna said, being able to be financially able to pursue a career in sports leadership, so paying parity. There is a very big discrepancy when what female athletes are paid compared to male athletes in the general rule. But we look at coaches, many female coaches are volunteer. So how do you make that work alongside the land? It's got to be financially viable. So as we level the playing field and we make it more And open for women establish these roles of empowerment and leadership. They've got to be paid the same as men.
Now, I'll leave the last word to our youngest panelist, who's an amazing athlete, very exciting to follow her career. And everybody can find you on social media, on Instagram. Atika, what advice would you give, not just to girls, but also girls and women of any age when it comes to following their dreams?
My message to all the girls out there is to believe in yourself, find the passion, dream it, follow it, work hard on it, never give up, and don't let anyone tell you that you can't do it. And always remember, like, when there's any barrier, you should keep pushing so that you can break that barrier. And then when you break that barrier, like, successful.
Amazing.
Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone.
Sorry.